Jacob Kline, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, what's going on, brother? Thanks for
Uh,
having me on.
my pleasure, man. I was looking forward to this one. So, today we're going to talk about direct mail, rehabbing houses, and construction. Three things that I do a lot of, you do a lot of, and I see a lot of people have issues with. So, hopefully, by the time they're done listening to this interview, they can have a good understanding on how to be really good at these things so they can make a ton of money. So, before we get into all that, how in
Mhm.
the world did you get into real estate investing?
Yeah, it's a question I get all the time and kind of an interesting answer. I had a business in the e-cigarette industry, and I was at the same time learning how to get my product into distributors and all that kind of stuff. So I was watching Grant Cardone on YouTube, cold calling, just trying to learn how to do sales. And then naturally just saw like some wholesaling stuff come up. And, as that industry was kind of fading, I started making a couple calls to sellers and popped a 25K deal in my first month of calling.
In the Jacksonville area, out of all places?
Yeah, so, I mean, you could throw a pin and hit a deal in 2019.
I'm trying to
Yeah.
think, like, I've been doing this since 15, so, yeah, 19 is when it was still
You could just absolutely crush it. Yeah,
it's such a different market, man. I've
yeah.
never done a deal in Florida, but I know that that market, you would know better than me, but Jacksonville is a much more healthy market because it seems more affordable.
I mean, I'm curious to see what their numbers are down there, like, compared to here, but just like anywhere, we're talking probably 4 times the amount of inventory 18 months ago.
Have you seen that just with your flips? I guess we'll start with that topic. So 4x the inventory, because I mean, back like 2021, early 2022, it's on the market. If it didn't have multiple offers in a weekend, like you were pushing the panic button, or at least I was.
That's definitely how it was. I mean, you push the envelope a little bit and still full price. Like there was no closing cost credits where today it's like mandatory 3% closing cost credit on every deal. And you're accepting below asking. And you're lucky if you get a good offer in the first week. We're getting crushed on repair lists right now. It's like people are expecting rehabbed houses to be like a brand new construction house where there's a clean inspection report.
Are you still seeing though in Jacksonville, like in New York, it's harder to sell, but it's still a good market because like the prices are still staying there. Have you seen a decline in overall sales prices, or is it more of just the houses are still selling at a good number? It's just taking longer for them to actually sell and get absorbed into the market?
Yeah, I would say that's pretty much correct. We've seen in some areas as much as a 10% decrease in ARV, but that's areas that were just crazy. People were just bidding and stuff like that. So
Yeah, it
there
was
was
more of an inflated ARV to begin with, and now you're selling them at the true number. That happened a lot in Salt Lake City and Idaho. Like Salt Lake got hammered because it was so expensive and the numbers were so unrealistic. By the time the chickens came home to roost, it was like, holy shit, these things are only really worth like 400 grand. We were selling them for 550 a year ago.
it's 2 times the amount of inventory as it was 2 years ago. And median sales price is up 5K from then,
But it's still an overall good market to flip in, right?
for sure.
So let's start at the top then. So sourcing your deals, right? We're going to cover the fix and flip part in a minute. You're doing direct mail to get your deals, right? A lot of people complain about direct mail because it is expensive and you get a lot of take me off your list people. But I always say like, dude, I think direct mail is the best channel. I don't have any affiliation. I'm a customer of direct mail. I'm not a vendor. So, I got no dog in the fight. How much mail are you sending on a monthly basis to get the kind of business you guys are doing?
Yeah, it's a good question. And it's funny enough, like, I think the reason that I started watching your stuff is because we are very similar in that aspect that, like, I have no dog in the fight. I'm not selling anything. My only business is my real estate investment business. And we're all direct mail.
How many mailers are you sending out on a monthly basis?
Yeah, like probably like 25,000.
25,000. So you're spending around 12.5 in postage roughly.
Well, we're sending handwritten pieces to everything.
You're sending 25,000 handwritten letters a month?
Yeah, I mean, you know what I'm
Wow.
talking about, like the ballpoint marketing stuff. They cost a buck 20 a piece. So it's like double the cost of your typical. But the thing is, like, the formula to this is that the data that we're mailing is quality data. We're lucky to be in a market where there is enough data to be sending 25,000 pieces a month and it still be quality prospects that we're going after, if that makes sense.
So you're spending 30,000 plus a month direct mail, handwritten letters. Okay, so this is where everyone's going to benefit from it, but it's like a selfish podcast for me because I'm like a huge numbers guy. Here's my question for you. What would you say is the response rate with you sending out the high quality letters that are handwritten?
Yeah, it's between 1.1 and 1.2. Is that lower than you would think?
No, no, that's phenomenal. You're sending out 25,000 units. You're getting 250 calls. I'm just using round numbers. I would imagine out of those 250 phone calls, you're probably getting like 125 reasonable leads a month. And that's what you're working with.
Why not go deeper than that?
Let's go deeper. Okay.
That's when it starts getting interesting, right? So I don't even really look at that. I guess I would say, we use three simply. It looks like about 40% are qualified leads.
40% of the 250.
Yeah.
All right. So 250 times 0.4. So 100 leads. So it's $300 a lead, right? That's on average your cost per lead.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. How many leads do you need on average to get a closed deal?
So we consider a call a lead. So like somebody that could be marked as a dead lead from saying, remove me from the list, like that's considered a lead. For total leads that come in, we're at 27 leads per contract.
Those numbers are phenomenal because you're not even accounting for the removals.
Correct. Yeah. So it'd be more like 14.
Those are really good numbers. So we basically just reverse engineered his marketing funnel from an ad spend return standpoint. You're buying what? 5 to 6 deals a month, I'd say.
Yeah. In June, we bought 16.
16 purchases.
Yeah.
Holy
And
shit.
we're averaging probably 8 or 9 a month
8
purchase.
or 9 buys a month from that 25,000. If I were you, I would never stop mailing until that doesn't work anymore.
For sure. And I've said this on a bunch of podcasts, the same thing, like just all the numbers are out there. The market's out there. All the info's out there and none of our numbers have changed. And we go on all in-person appointments too. That definitely helps a lot. I think if we were to do like a remote market, I'd love to see the difference. I'd love to test it and see using the same agents, what is the numbers? What does it crank out to be after a year?
I'll tell you this, and I like this is more we're having a cup of coffee over a podcast. I would say Jacksonville would be deemed a harder market in the grand scheme of things. If you were to go to like Miami, I would say it would probably be like 50% harder.
Yeah,
Not
it costs twice as much to get a deal.
I don't even think so. I think it would be 50%. I don't even think it would be double because there's a lot of jerk offs who go to Jacksonville and they think it's
Yeah.
easier than their other market, which causes a flood of competition.
So many people.
There's so many people.
The problem is like we're competing against just garbage wholesalers. Like
Mhm.
every time that we miss a deal to another investor offer, it's on investor lift and then it gets dropped.
I know how that is.
And it's like to talk about like the market today, something that would be in our like green light buy box, we're the best buyer for it.
You're the actual buyer. You're not wholesaling it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's
Yeah.
a lot of real buyers in Jacksonville. There's a lot of people doing the same volume that I am, and probably a few doing more.
Yeah, JWB, there's a couple big boys over there.
I mean, they're all building new construction, which is a whole nother topic.
So let's go back to that mail. You got a optimized mail funnel right there with good economics. You got a good dispo process, which we're going to talk about with a fix and flip. Before we close the loop on the mail, what list are you mailing?
We're mailing courthouse data #1. We're just crushing that stuff.
Duval
because-
County courthouse data.
Exactly. I have a VA that pulls it every day, and we're submitting mail orders every day or every other day so that we're getting to that data as soon as possible. The same thing that these cold call guys are doing. They're pulling data every day, every
Yep.
morning, and then calling those guys that day. We're doing it now. So we're competing against people in Jacksonville who have these machines. They have the handwriting machines. I know 2 guys in Jacksonville that have the handwriting machines that they print them the same day and send them. So it's interesting. I've thought about going that route, but yeah, the courthouse stuff, we're just hammering it. I mean, we hit it again every 4 weeks for, I think, 10 months. So like, if you think about the return on the amount of mail that we're sending, like on attempt number 6, we're still getting a good return.
Do you have enough niche data in Duval County to just only mail that?
Pretty much. And then it's surrounding counties too.
So we're talking courthouse data, probate, tax, foreclosure, like list pendants, all that shit.
And then like vacants, I mean, we use like REI SIF to do like
Yeah.
all that stuff. So vacants, we're not hitting that every month, but I mean, the new vacants, we're hitting those. Like my specific buy box, I kind of hate that word, but it's a good description. It's just 1990 and newer double wide mobile homes on 1 acre plus. I've realized that that's legitimately 70% of the deals we do.
Okay. Have you
Yeah.
thought about mailing, like, have you ever heard of Dataflick or Organic or those
Yeah.
guys?
Yeah.
You should consider mailing with Dataflick.
I have. I mean, I don't know how it does for you, but like we have our REISIF stuff dialed in. So I think we're already doing that same thing
So you're getting it from the best source, which is the county
10
record.
months in a row. So like we're
Yeah.
not going to miss this stuff. If you look at their raw data coming from Dataflick, it's the same stuff that we're pulling on a consistent basis.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking, like, New York has got fucked up records, so we kinda rely on that to, like, expedite it. But your counties are so big up there, the MSA is popular enough, I think you're fine just whatever you're doing that's working, like, who gives a fuck? Just keep doing it.
Paid for Dataflick, I mean, it's $4,500 a month.
How many counties are you buying? 2?
That's well, Duval's expensive. I stopped doing it. I did it for like 3 months and tracked like what their top 10,000 records were across all
Yeah.
my counties and then marked it in REISIF. And I was like, how many times have I mailed this stuff? And I think it was like 80% of that stuff I had already mailed.
You're already mailing because it's from the niche list. Well, if that's the case for you, I would say fuck that. Yeah, just mail the niche stuff.
Like for somebody who doesn't have a VA or doesn't know how to set up a process, you should know how to set up a process for a VA to pull your stuff. But for somebody who's just doing acquisition himself or something, maybe that makes sense. I think there's a lot of people making loads of money on that kind of thing.
And your vendor is Ballpoint Marketing?
Ballpoint and open letter is
Okay.
who I use. Yeah.
How do you decide who you're using?
I mean, the prices flip flop all the time. And really the lead times kind of fluctuate too between both of them. So it's really just until I get frustrated with one, then I go to the other and then go back.
No, I've been using open letter marketing forever. I just always have found a lot of consistency with their
Yeah.
products.
Ryan's a good friend of mine.
Yeah, he's got a great product, man. He's a great marketer, Ryan. Love the guy.
Yeah, I know. And it seems like they're doing some pretty big stuff.
He's got a good system where I think if someone follows what he has to say and uses this mail piece and they're like new breaking in, it'll help them over their competition.
That's how I started. I got into his like create cash flow mastermind and then
Yeah.
it just blew me up. Like I just
Yeah.
started ripping wholesale deals.
So if people want to check that out, they should. I think it's CCF Mastermind or something like that. Nothing but
Yeah.
good things to say about Ryan Dossi. One of his students, it's interesting. I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, one of his students was in New York and he hit me up. And New York is like very hard market to do shit in because of the lawyers. So his student hit me up and he was doing the ballpoint stuff. And he ended up bringing a house in and we ended up wholesaling it for like $30,000 or something. And, he got the lead and I helped him with the buyer and all the logistics. And he got his first deal that way.
Yeah. We come across the lawyer thing pretty often too, because that's where those people are moving to is down here.
Their attorney in New York is handling the sale and then they're moving down to Jacksonville.
They just have that mentality that I need an attorney to review everything that I do.
Well, the thing is, we're about to talk about how you're actually monetizing these. You're a bona fide buyer who's buying the house. So generally, their attorney isn't going to have much objections because you're closing on it.
Our contract is like solid. Like these people could definitely sue us if like if we didn't execute, and like
Sue you for not closing?
yeah.
Are you putting in the contract like if buyer defaults, seller can sue for the purchase price or something like that?
I mean, for any contract, if you go past due diligence, you could sue somebody for specific performance.
Usually it's the other way around, though. It's usually the buyer can sue the seller, but then the seller
Yeah.
remedies the down payment damages. That could change depending on if the house value drops throughout the contract phase. You can get sued for the difference.
Well, I think you can go the other way too. I mean, typically it's if the seller backs out, because we're the seller a lot too, right?
Yeah, that's true.
If we end up backing out of something, like we're gonna actually give the person their earnest money, like nothing shady. Like it's all
Yeah. Oh, me too. Me too. Yeah. Unless there's a contingency in there and the seller was aware of it. Like if I needed to inspect the septic or something and it didn't check out. But anyway, let's talk about exit strategies. So a lot of people
Mhm.
wholesale, you guys are flipping all your properties. So what would you say on average is the net profit you're making on these flips compared to what you would make if you were to wholesale them?
I mean, I know we're making about 47. And
47,000 net.
yeah. And I mean, everybody's how they calculate net is different.
Yeah.
Right? Like, just is it include your overhead of salaries and commissions?
No, I'm talking on a fix and flip. Like you got your sale price, deduct commissions, closing costs, dock stamps,
Right.
got your basis, and then you pay yourself back.
It would be more than 47 because I'm factoring in commission that we're paying to our in-house
Yeah.
people. So yeah, I mean, probably in the 50s. right? On average. This year, it's going to be lower.
You guys are cranking, dude. You guys are like a money making machine down there. Your economics are so healthy. Like with your, let's call it your gross profit minus your cost to acquire is like, you're probably what, 8 to 12 times X on your marketing, I'd imagine.
That's it. That's exactly what we're going for is 12, but it falls about 10. But at the same time, we have a whole construction business. We haven't talked about that. The construction business, I swear, is bigger, way bigger than the acquisition side of things.
When you say construction business, do you service clients or are you just using
No,
that? It's
it's
just
just
for
for our
yourself.
stuff. Yeah, because we're buying a lot of stuff. And I mean, I've got a constant backlog of flips that we need to get to. So like right now, we've got posts out of trying to hire people and we're directly hiring employees. I mean, they're on 1099, but they're basically employees that like, if they don't have something to do, they're calling me or the project manager to ask, hey, where do I go today? So we've got 5 crews of 4 people that are constantly, they'll take something start to finish on a rehab.
So you have this construction company, you're rehabbing these houses. You have an edge in 2 areas. Your marketing is way more efficient than the other competitors, and you can
Yeah.
essentially pay more for houses because your construction costs are inherently going to be slightly lower than the guy who doesn't have the construction company. So I feel like you could build a moat around your business at this point because other people can't compete with that.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good portion of why we're a good buyer. And then, at the end of the day, the thing that factors into it hugely is that it's easier for me to flip a property than it is to wholesale.
Oh, because of the construction business.
I mean, we just close on it and plug it into our system, and like we use Monday.com and there's just automations to just take it through the process to sell.
My last question, and then we'll keep unpacking this, is what are you doing from a capital standpoint? Because you got a lot of money on this. If you buy 8 houses a month, I mean, you're gonna have to raise a lot of money to operate that machine.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. I mean, I use a significant amount of my own cash. Even just doing this amount of stuff and using hard or private money on every deal, you're still going to have millions into the business at any time. So we're using hard money, we're using private money. I've probably got 4 million-ish in private money that like with those people, we basically have the machine set up where I can tell them like, we're going to return 10, 11% on your money annualized.
Yeah, you could just keep their money working because you have enough inventory to go through. You should honestly start a fund at this point because you have the infrastructure set up.
That's what I want to do. I was trying to set up a call with an attorney last week to talk about doing that, setting up a fund because it would save a lot of money in, doc stamps and points and all this. If we could just give a guaranteed 10% return and just throw your money in, like I think people would be clamoring for it.
That's an easier sell. Well, I mean, private money is pretty easy if it's a good deal. But yeah, like you're saying, with the volume you have, if you had a fund, that would just make it easier. Because I've done a variation of this, but what I see a lot of people get in trouble with, and this has certainly happened to me, is you get all these projects, got all this money on the street, the money comes back and it goes back out, and it's just like this fucking ever long thing. So someone said this, I think this was on a podcast I listened to. He'll borrow, like, let's say he's buying a house, right? And he's got a private lender. He'll borrow the purchase, the rehab, the closing costs, and he'll borrow the cost to acquire. Like, let's say it costs him 10 grand in marketing. He'll balloon payment the lender. So then he's got no payments until it sells or refis. And then he borrowed all his marketing money. So then he can immediately put it back into marketing to then get another deal. But he's done that and he's been pretty successful with it.
That seems like you would have to be buying at 65% or better to
You
be able
have
to
to.
truly satisfy like even 75 loan to value. There's a reason we rehab this stuff because the value goes up when we rehab it. So,
Exactly.
you spend $1 and get 125 in return, hopefully. I think a lot of times it doesn't really happen like that. It's just like you just rehab it so you can sell it.
Your model though, dude, what's your biggest bottleneck? Is it capital at this point?
I don't know. Like the biggest bottleneck is probably employees and just like me.
Besides that, like that's like more of an operation. Like I'm talking about like money, deals, marketing, like the operation stuff is like always a bottleneck. But have you ever been in a situation where you needed more money for deals or you have like
Oh,
a
yeah.
amount of cash?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've been like really, really stressed about money before. There was one time, I think it was this year, maybe it was end of last year, that the account the next day was gonna overdraft. I had all my personal money pretty much into the business, like just full throttle.
Yeah.
And, it always happens if you're a flipper, 7 days later, you got $800,000 in the bank account. And then the problem is like, okay, do I have the deals lined up to put it back out? And I mean, I probably have made some mistakes on the money side of things. Like on my rental portfolio, I could have pulled a line of credit on the whole portfolio and probably had an extra $1 million to play with at any time, which would help with growing more. But I don't know if I really would want to be flipping more than what we're doing right now. So that's why I don't really have any qualms. So the next step for me is it's almost like starting a whole nother business of building new construction houses and keep them as rentals or, sell them, but probably keep them as rentals because we can build for 1% here. So
You can build for the 1% rule?
yeah, but
So
you can't buy for it though.
well, let me just make sure I understand that. So you can be all into a house on a cost basis of 250,000 with dirt plus hard costs.
Yes, everything.
So what is it, like 200 bucks a foot to build new?
No, 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 no. Not even close.
Lower than 200 bucks a foot to build new construction?
Way less, bro.
But in Seattle, it's 300. I don't build new in Seattle. I'm just my friends and shit I was talking to. It's like 300 bucks a foot to build a dadu in the backyard.
Well, the thing here is everybody says you build a shit box and it's 175 a square foot is what they say. But the truth is you build that shit box and you don't pay a GC and it's going to be like a buck 20.
Is it easy to get permits down there, or is it a mess to deal with all
No,
that?
it's not crazy. I mean, it's definitely gangbusters down here with new construction. Like the issue is finding infill lots because the only alternative to finding infill lots is you become a developer. Not even that. Like you're doing a full planned unit development, which all that land has been eaten up because we're the second fastest growing county in Florida, where I live in St. Johns County. We're in about the craziest market you could find.
Like I said, I don't know Jacksonville, but there's obviously hoods everywhere. Could you, in theory, buy an infill lot in a complete war zone that's gentrifying for $15,000, $10,000, like tax auction? Stick a house on there for cost you $125,000, so you're in for 140, let's say, if you go all
Yeah.
cash, closing costs. I would imagine that house, new construction, even if it's a modular house, would sell for at least 250 grand, even in a bad neighborhood. Is that accurate, or am I?
That's what JWB you mentioned earlier. They're not doing the volume. That's how they're doing it. Is exactly what you're talking about.
Infill in the hood.
Yeah, absolute war
Yeah,
zone.
because you can find a lot for 10 grand.
Well, yeah, you're buying a lot with water and sewer, and they're building for really cheap. I mean, they probably build for a buck 20 square foot, and they're a decent product. And what their entire model is, and there's a ton of people that do this across Florida because construction costs are pretty low, is they have a gang of California buyers that are like buying these houses for close to retail price after, the management company puts a tenant in there. So they're paying 250 for that house that's renting for 1,500 a month or 1,600 a month on like an appreciation play or whatever. I don't know if it's 250, maybe more like 220.
Still, they're not even getting a 1% rule.
No, no, like these people that they have, they're not out to the 1% rule. They're like 0.7 and they're doing hundreds of these houses.
Is this in the hood?
Yeah. I mean, to be that kind of price and make money, it'd have to be like super hood for sure. Where you're
That's good
paying
though for
like
the town because it's gonna make the hood less shitty over time because you're gentrifying.
yeah, and I mean, like downtown Jacksonville, we're talking about, and like a couple of rough areas. They're smart because Jacksonville downtown. I mean, we're getting a new stadium for the Jaguars, like 1 point something billion, right there downtown, where it's super hoodie. I mean, like you go down there to park for a Jags game, and it's sketchy.
Oh, is it that bad?
It was the worst NFL stadium because they were borderline about to move the team to somewhere else.
Dude, that's interesting because Duval County is the largest geographical county in the country. And I'd imagine there's a lot of density like towards Jacksonville, but as you kind of go out in the county, it gets more rural, hence your mobile home strategy making sense.
Right.
And it's like, what do they call that? North Georgia down there. Jacksonville is like legit right by the border, right?
Yeah, it's very close.
And I grew up in the New York area. There's a lot of people moving to fucking Jacksonville, man. Is there a lot of like Florida man bullshit down there? Or is it a little bit more normal compared to like Tampa and Orlando and all those alligator maniacs?
I mean, this is probably a pretty rash way of describing the area, but it's pretty hicky. And you go into the cities and stuff, and it's more progressive, I guess you could say. But like our mobile people, we do TV commercials on Fox News, and I mean, that's where they are, right?
That's crazy. Interesting. So we covered a lot. We covered mail, we covered the rehabs. One more question and then we'll start to wrap the show up is now your cost to build is obviously very cheap compared to the rest of the country.
Yeah.
Now, I would imagine you're rehabbing a house, obviously cheaper than a new build, most likely. Let's say you have a 3-2, hurricane proof house,
Yeah.
needs a full rehab with a roof included. You're probably 60 grand max on a rehab.
It's more than that for sure. I mean, I've done a go wide mobile home remodel that was 100K.
Because it studs down rehab.
It should have been torn down probably. And we got to the end of it and I was like, man, we could have put a new one here
You
for
could have just rolled the new one in.
pretty much. But our rehab stuff ends up, I mean, it's a whole nother topic, but new mobile homes are just garbage quality.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, terrible. Like when we go in and fully gut one, we have to put 2x4s where the doorways are because you can't get a 2x3, door jamb. It's definitely interesting. I mean, the cost to rehab is actually pretty high. Like I haven't yet to build a new construction house, but I know for a fact across the country, contracting in general is like some of the most profitable business in the country, I think.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. You can make a ton of money.
they're using all the excuses in the book of, COVID, material prices, hard to find people, whatever. But the truth is they're just cleaning up.
Up with no risk. I mean, client pays for the job. So you do a 50K rehab and you got 20% margin on that, 10 grand.
Right.
It's a good business. What do they say? When everyone's digging for gold, sell the shovels, i.e., mail, contracting, data. You can still make a lot of money digging for gold as for your entire business. You guys are doing phenomenal. So this was an awesome interview. I like how this was more of just kind of like a sit back and get to know each other podcast. So if people do want to follow you, how do they check you out on the internet?
Yeah. So it's J Klein, JKLINE _ REI on Instagram.
Sweet. Well, we'll put that in the show notes and I appreciate you being a guest.
Yeah, man.